Good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a beautiful day and that you feel ready to close this circle on this day, to step into the night and the dream time. I sure am. I feel so at peace. I've been out in the outdoor kitchen making the dishes and listening to the birds, just feeling the summer and the liveness. Mm. Mm. Just feels beautiful. There's so much bubbling and so much happening right now. I see that I'm on my way of opening up for private session in shamanic healing in a completely new way, and it feels beautiful. It feels like it's happening because I'm creating space for it to happen, so that I can truly have space to be here and meet each and every one of you if needed. Ah, yeah, just feels amazing. We're diving into today's reading. Today we start with chapter 9, the Threefold Path. The seven sacred directions have taught us how to think indigenous. But how do we live indigenous? We have found three related pathways to living a modern life while also maintaining this nature-based spirituality. The way of the seven generations, conscious living, is a modern term for the ancient way of living in harmony with the laws of nature and making decisions based on how our choices will affect the lives of our unborn relatives 7 generations from today. It is also taken into account that many generations that have come before us, who stand as examples of what to do and what not to do, so that we learn from past mistakes and successes. The way of the buffalo, mindful consumption, is a modern term for the ancient practice of respecting and honoring all beings on Mother Earth. This practice requires being intentional and deliberate with our stewardship of the land and learning how to live within a circular, aware mindset. The way of the village, collective impact, describes the process of finding your community, being a part of an indigenous thinking community, and elevating planetary consciousness when we work, play, and pray together. Mm. Ah, the way of the 7 generations. I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse, a venerated Lakota warrior, was shown a powerful vision that there would be a time of 7 generations when all the colors of humankind would gather under the tree of life, and Grandmother Earth would welcome the hearts and minds of the spiritually disconnected back into the ways of her mysterious knowledge. At that time, there would be indigenous wisdom keepers that carry knowledge and understanding of unity among all living things, and other would come to listen and learn the ways of indigenous wisdom. The teachings tell us that humanity has arrived at this era of awakening and connection. The old ones say that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, but that we borrow it from our children. To live life according to the way of the seven generations mean to think and act in such a way that each of our decisions and actions is made with the deep consideration and wisdom of our ancestral past, our eventual impact on Mother Earth, and the future lives of the unborn. The seven generations include both the seven generations that preceded our life and the seven generations that have yet to come. By taking the time to learn from the generations upon generations of our previous ancestors, we can bypass common mistakes and experience success and happiness more quickly and more often. There's an ancient proverb that says, all the flowers of all the tomorrows are in the seeds of today. This is just another example that indigenous cultures from all parts of the world, not just Native Americans, knew the way of the seven generations thousands of years ago. And as the ancestors know, thousands of years is not a long time, whether we're going back in history or forward into our future. Mitakaye Ayasin, we are all related. A grandfather takes his grandchild out to fish for the first time. A grandmother and auntie take a child out to gather berries and wild foods. In this way, we teach our children the value of caring, compassion, and the indigenous way of living. The first time a child is taught to fish or gather berries, nuts, or roots, that food is always given away to other members of the family in a special ceremonial meal. Everyone is invited to the feast and shares in the food gathered by the child, except the guest of honor, the child. The child is pleased because they are able to provide for the family in a powerful way and gets to enjoy the bounty of the hard work with all the people they love. The child does not go hungry, but they cannot eat any of the food they gathered or caught at the ceremonial feast. This first meal, provided by the child's first hunt, fishing trip, or gathering with the grandmothers, honors the community and the child. Sharing is a way of life for the indigenous people. No one can survive on their own. We are all related, and as such, we are all responsible for each other. This responsibility creates conscious living practices. Mm. Mm, beautiful. I think we have a little more left before we're done today. Conscious living. Conscious living is a modern way of considering how the decisions we make today will impact the next seven generations. For life to continue to move forward, we must teach our children early in their lives that we adults have collectively learned later in our lives. This is how the belief system of a collective consciousness evolves in a good way. This is not to say it's easy. In this modern world, it can be hard to feel like you are living in alignment with your beliefs. We all have to buy food. We all have to get from place to place. We all have to pay bills, and sometimes those needs and responsibilities demand that we compromise our beliefs. Eating toxic food, driving fossil fueled vehicles, going to a job that is meaningless, or worse yet, that is harmful or destructive to other beings and the environment, are all things that we may do that don't support our belief systems. This can be hard to accept, but we aren't in this time and place just so we can lose hope. Fear and despair may be contagious, but so is hope and courage. We shouldn't have to live in a world where it's up to us to protect our health and the environment from politicians and corporations. But that's the world we live in. We are the ones we've been waiting for, and we need to understand that we are the guardians of the earth, and we must integrate this realization into our lives as best we can and as soon as we can. All of the spiritual awakening in the world won't help the earth or humanity if we don't live what we learn. Living in harmony with Mother Earth. The pollution of Mother Earth is simply the external reflection of our inner spiritual relationship with the Creator, or in other words, ourself. When millions and millions of us are spiritually disconnected from ourselves, not living in alignment with the ways of Mother Earth or the natural laws of the universe, then it's easy to see how we as a society can defile this earth without much consideration of the results of our actions and decisions. I used to think that top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science could address these problems. I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy, and to deal with these, we need a culture and spiritual transformation, and we scientists don't know how to do that. Gus Spett, co-founder of the Natural Resources Defense Council and former dean of Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. The first lesson of living in harmony with Grandmother Earth is learning the acts of self-care and self-actualization. We can't expect to live in harmony with Grandmother Earth if we're not in harmony with ourselves. And we can't expect to see changes in this world if we're not making changes within. All change begins with the self. Harmony does not happen just because we suddenly choose to be in harmony with something or someone else. Harmony begins when we begin to work on that harmony. To heal the land, we must heal each other, but to heal each other, we must first heal ourselves. Doug Goodfeather. Do you want to change the world? Well, loving yourself is the first and highest form of direct action. Imagine how many corrupt people would lose power and how many greedy corruptions would collapse if we all simply decided that we love ourselves. If we loved our bodies, we wouldn't poison them with toxic food. We wouldn't drink water out of plastic bottles, water that's being stolen by evil corporations. If we loved ourselves, we wouldn't let the military industrial complex manufacture wars for their profit, and we wouldn't let the oil and gas extraction industry continue to destroy the environment. Mm. What I hear in this is that the most radical and activistic thing we can do is to love ourselves so that we can go out in the world and act from that place of love, of self-love, and the connection it creates. Mm, such beautiful words and such wisdom. Mm. Thank you all for tonight. And thank you for being here with me. So much love.